Hi everyone, and welcome to our first ever installment of Mentoring Mondays, brought to you by the Emerging Leaders Membership Council. We all know that over the next 10 years, majority of our veteran workforce will be entering retirement. This will not only affect the code enforcement and administration industry, but will be widespread across the professions throughout the United States. We, however, are lucky that our industry leader, the ICC, has realized this is a true problem we will be facing down the road and decided to take action. Thus, the creation of Safety 2.0 and ultimately the Emerging Leaders Membership Council. The Emerging Leaders Membership Council has also taken this retirement deficit serious and created Mentoring Mondays. We want these short segments to be heard and seen across the world. We want to show everyone that it doesn't take just marketing campaigns to grow an industry, but rather people. In particular, it takes mentoring. It takes a person to show an interest, take the time, and impart their knowledge onto the growing generations of our next code professionals. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce my mentor and good friend, Bill Bryant.
Thank you.
Bill is Vice President of the Board of Directors for your ICC. When I first started in the industry, Bill was the one who took the time to show me the ropes, teach me what it means to be a code enforcement professional. Bill is going to tell us today about how he started in the industry and how his path was not so different from many of you out there, in that it all began with mentoring. Bill, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Mike. You got a very interesting story on code enforcement. Would you mind explaining how all of us began?
Sure. So when I first started in the industry, I came across this position as a plans reviewer, and I was a little bit hesitant at first because I didn't really know what that meant. I started off as a contractor, and working as a sprinkler contractor, I knew about the permit process and how to pull permits, but I didn't really know what it actually meant to be a plans reviewer. One thing I did know was that I was going to be able to use all the knowledge and different facets of fire protection, which I love, and that's kind of what led me to this. And once I started, it really was you that took me under your wing and kind of really showed me, what it meant to be in this profession, to work in code enforcement. So that's how I started here. But Bill, I would like to pose that same question to you. Show us how you tell us about how you started in code enforcement.
Oh, it's been probably 35 years ago. I worked for a private manufacturing company who built shelter units. And with them, I was in their engineering department. That's why I started out. And during that whole process, I was on the gray hat side of code enforcement. In other words, I was to figure out how the codes affected our product and make either improvements or change codes to allow our product to be currently built. So that's how I basically started in the industry. With that, after some downfalls in the early 80s, I switched jobs, and I actually got a job with Anne Arundel County, Maryland as a plan reviewer for Anne Arundel County. During that process, I started out as a plan reviewer. I became chief building inspector. I became code enforcement administrator, inspection services administrator, and now I'm the assistant director of inspections and permits for Anne Arundel County. And I had 3 or 4 great mentors in that whole period of time. And I look back, and I think probably the 2 of the biggest mentors that I've ever had in my entire life were my mother and father. They were the first mentors I ever had because they taught me, number one, right from wrong. They taught me good work ethic, and they taught me a lot of those items. Those were probably the first major mentors that I ever had in my life, and I think they were excellent. Along the trail, I've had numerous mentors. The director who hired me at Anne Arundel County first told me when I first hired on that you need to participate in the certification process. And through that demand, it wasn't a request, I was already taking some of the certification tests, and I finished those up. Thanks to Paul Radaskus, I think he showed me a way on how to broaden my horizons and be all the best that I could be.
I think that's such an interesting point that really it started off with your parents. You know, mentors, they come in all different shapes and sizes. They come in your professional life, they come in your personal life. And I don't think it can be overstated how important the mentor really is in providing us that knowledge that we just don't have yet starting off, whether it be starting off your life from your parents, starting off in this industry of code enforcement. Those mentors, they really are the ones that give us that guiding path and show us the way on how to get there. I think that cannot be overstated enough. So you had quite a few mentors there. What would you say the most impactful thing one of your mentors ever did for you, whether it be just imparting some knowledge on you, allowing you to participate in a large meeting, or taking your ideas and making them company standard?
I think the largest or the biggest item of previous mentors was pushing me always to get involved in something. And didn't matter if it was good or if it was bad, just getting involved in the code change process, getting on committees. And once again, part of the scenario when I was hired was, yes, you need to get on a committee. I served on an interpretations committee. From there, I continued doing things like that. Paul was very instrumental with that. I had another mentor, past President Paul Myers, and I met Paul in Virginia in probably 1990 or 1991, and was having a philosophical code discussion with another friend of mine from Columbus, Ohio, and I happened to see how we were bantering back and forth, and he grabbed me, and I didn't know Paul from whatever at that point in time, and Paul said, you ever think about running for the board of directors? And it was like, absolutely not. So Paul sort of pushed me that direction. And then that made me think back in 1996 that I want to achieve a higher level of superiority. So, back in 96, I ran for the board. I was successful. I was on the board, and I've progressed with it since. And I've had numerous people from that point on until now that have been great mentors to me, and I would, if I could name them all, I would do, but there's so many relationships that you build that make great mentors.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned there that I think is it's so important is that it's just being involved. It's you don't have to be the brightest, sharpest, know everything there is to know about the ICC. Just being involved, you begin to learn, you begin to meet more people, and that's how you develop those relationships, and that's how you really grow. It's just becoming involved in those different types of things. Exactly.
And by that network, you gain that interaction between people. You discuss things, you learn more, you open up the doors for yourself and everybody else. And that relationship is invaluable. And it's all mentoring, even if you don't want to consider a mentor, but you consider talking code with another individual at a hearing or whatever. The level of confidence you get out of that, the level of I guess for better interest is what I want to say, in bettering the code process, bettering yourself, and bettering your knowledge. Mentoring is a special thing for me. It's sort of a chemistry between two people that, I have numerous friends. I have a lot less mentors or mentees than what I do friends. So it's that you can see that being developed in an individual, and you can understand and you can help that individual attain a certain goal and be better than he was before.
Would you say that that's the most valuable thing you find about mentorship, or what specifically do you value in not only the relationships you've had with your mentors, but also with your mentees?
Wisdom. Okay, to gain that wisdom or knowledge about life, how things work, how to get from A to B to C. And it opens up doors. And when those doors open up, successes become in your hand. And it's your job to grab those. It's like the tree that grows the fruit. Okay, you may not be able to grab that first apple, but if you have somebody help you up, you can grab that first apple. Once you have the bite of that first apple, then you're hooked.
Sure. I completely agree. I would say personally, I believe that you're a very good mentor, and you've really taught me things that I would have never learned by trying to do this by myself. And sometimes I wonder, have you ever read any books on leadership or on how to be a mentor, or how did you develop your skills?
I think it's just from past history, from people I've known. I've read books on leadership. There are numerous books of leadership out there. You go through, processes where you, say in high school, and say you were involved in sports, you were involved in this, you were involved in scouts, and that all pays a difference on how to lead people. You can always, you need to be able to lead people and get there. I've been successful in what I've done. So whether the books told me to do it or whether friends told me to do it, I've managed to make that happen.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a confidence in the person to lead. I've never asked anybody to do anything that I would not do myself. So I think that's part of the key to success.
I think that's so important, that it really doesn't matter the route that you're taking, whether you have that formal training, whether you have those relationships, whether you read a few books. It matters that you take the time to really impart that knowledge and impart that wisdom on the others that you're mentoring. It's great to show the young professionals like myself what it really means to be a leader, and it's very helpful to see somebody lead by example.
Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, I made mistakes in my life.
We all do.
And if I can help an individual not make those same mistakes, then that's a success. If I can give that leadership skill to somebody, if I can direct them away from the mistakes that I made, they're going to be a better person than I am.
Sure.
And you always look to make something better than what you are.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's almost like there was a saying in Scouts that you're always to leave the campsite better than when you found it.
Absolutely.
Same thing applies. Now, if you were talking to one of your friends, veteran code professionals, what would you say to them if they were retiring within the next 5 years in regards to mentorship?
What I'd tell them is find somebody young. Grab somebody on your staff, grab somebody in the area through your chapter, and help them attain something. Get them involved with the process, no matter if the process is sitting on an interpretations committee or whether the process is filling out a code change. But get involved. It doesn't matter how minor or how major that option is, but get involved. Get involved with a membership council. Understand what's going on. Understand the direction of ICC and make it better for the next generation.
Now, on the flip side, conversely, what would you say to a young professional entering code enforcement?
If you're entering code, if you really have the heart, then ask questions. Ask your boss. Show some interest. Spend a little more time. Don't be self-centered, and don't look at what's in it for me. Look at it for what's in it for all.
I completely agree. And when you said that, when you said if you have the heart, and I think that goes to really what it means to be a code professional or a code enforcement, or to be within code enforcement. There's such a greater meaning, such a greater, higher value of being a code professional than just getting that paycheck and being able to interpret a code book. You really are shaping the way. You're shaping the way that the world is built, and you're shaping the way that everybody else that's not in code enforcement can use the facilities of this world. You know, it's how people can go into churches and be safe. They can go into hotels and motels across the world, and they know that they're going to have a sprinkler system or a fire alarm system, or they know they're going to have compliant exiting. That to me is really the greater meaning of being a code professional.
That's the whole meaning of it. We're the unsung heroes. Okay? Nobody really understands what we do because of negative connotations over the years. We are the first line of defense in saving lives, be
So
it
true.
through natural disaster, through building safety. That's all involved in our job. And people on the outside don't realize that that's what we do. I mean, I used to go into meetings, the first question out of my mouth to the audience was, do you feel safe in this building? They all look at me like I'm crazy. And I said, well, if you feel safe, then that means we've done our job. And it wakes them up.
Sure. You know, I think we just touched on it, but I have one final question for you. And I think we really just touched on the importance of being in this code enforcement profession. But in your opinion, what is the importance of being in the code enforcement profession? And, you know, why do we dedicate an entire month of the year, the month of May, to building safety?
We do that to raise the awareness of the general population. The general population has this negative connotation of our profession. And whatever we can do as leaders, whatever we can do as safety code professionals, we need to do to educate them. We've done, if you look at the disasters that we've had and where we've gone back and we've made things hurricane resistant, we've taken that into effect. We get egress out of houses. We do sprinklers in houses. If you look at all that and what we've done, we're building a safer tomorrow. We're building a safer United States.
I couldn't agree more. You know, I just really want to thank you from the Emerging Leaders Membership Council and myself for taking the time to share your experiences with us and really help us promote not only the profession, but to promote awareness that we as young professionals, we need guidance. That guidance, we may not always say it, but we do need that guidance. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Not a problem, Mike.
Today.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Emerging Leaders Membership Council and all of ICC would like to thank you for the creation of the Emerging Leaders Membership Council and for showing us a devout interest in developing the future of generations. On behalf of the Emerging Leaders Membership Council, we hope that you all enjoyed your first installment of Mentoring Mondays. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. It was a pleasure.